Decisions made in distant capitals shape jobs, prices, and businesses at home. So who's on the front line, navigating global politics and trade? And what does it mean for Malaysia's future?
At that point of time, we have three options. We can retaliate, we can do nothing, and we can engage the US.
Stay tuned to Decimal Point. "2025 saw big moves on the global stage. After the US imposed a 24% tariff on Malaysian goods, the government stepped in to negotiate a deal. The result? The agreement on reciprocal trade signed at the 47th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur by Malaysia's Prime Minister and the US President. Today, we speak to one of Malaysia's chief negotiators to get a first-hand look at the challenges and strategy behind this landmark deal. Welcome to Malaysia's Trade Crossroads. Dato', we were well known also as well that you were the chief negotiator for the US-Malaysia agreement on reciprocal trade. Can you walk us through on your role in that?
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank TVS for this interview. Actually, since the signing of the agreement, I've been going around sharing my experience as well as what are the meaning of the whole things. My involvement in that negotiations, fortunately or unfortunately, I am the Deputy Secretary of Trade for the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. So most of the time I will be the one who will be taking care of the trade relations, the trade performance of the country. So when on 2nd of April, President Trump announced the impositions of reciprocal tariff. At that point of time, in reactions, the government of Malaysia, we straight away formed what we call NGCC, National Geo-Economic Command Center, which is led by the Prime Minister himself. We convened the meeting. The first meeting that we convened is to discuss and choose what are the best option for Malaysia to address the new measures that actually will significantly impact the country. Fortunately, the president's the measures supposed to be enforced on 5th or 9th of April, but he then decided to provide 90 days suspension. So we see that 90 days suspension as an opportunity for us to engage the US and negotiate for, at that point of time, our main objective is to eliminate or remove the duty altogether. So I was part of the delegation with the previous Minister of MITI, the delegations to Washington at that time, proposing for the negotiations. And because I was there and the most senior government official at that point of time, the minister appointed me as the chief negotiator for this agreement.
From your experiences on this also, Dato', I mean, could you walk us through, you were speaking on the best option for Malaysia during that time and all that. What was actually the most ideal option in mitigating all this?
At that point of time, we have three options. We can retaliate, we can do nothing, and we can engage the US. When you talk about doing nothing, actually at that point of time, Malaysia was in a very comfortable positions because among the ASEAN region, the rate that imposed on Malaysia is only 24%. compared to Vietnam, I guess around 49%. Indonesia 30-something%. So in terms of whether it will impact on the competitiveness of our products, our competitiveness is still there because the duty imposed on us are at a moderate level. We have to understand that President Trump imposed to all additional duties on all exports from all countries. So Malaysia is not the only country that actually imposed with the duty. But then what we see, immediately upon the announcement, Vietnam went to see the president. Indonesia has a huge delegation. So we feel that if we do nothing and these people get a better trade or even removal of the duty, what will happen to us? So
Definitely
with the 20, so it will affect. Then we feel, it's so unfair that US put this unilaterally. Can we retaliate? So when we look at the situations in Malaysia, if you retaliate, meaning you will also increase your duty on US products that enter into Malaysia. So when you look into our industry structure, most of the activity that we are doing here, we are not importing finished goods from US. So definitely will not impact the consumer base because nothing in Malaysia will increase. The inflation will increase, the price will increase. But those that we are importing from US are actually inputs to our industry to produce finished product. So as an input, if we impose duty, the price of the inputs will go up. And definitely the cost of productions of our industry in Malaysia also will go up. So it is not a good option for our industry. And on top of that, the President Trump himself, his personality, look at China. When China retaliate, he increased the duty further. So can we able to face that situation? So again, retaliation is not an option. So the only options that are available to Malaysia is to engage US. And by engaging, US said you need to negotiate this agreement. So we negotiate the agreement because US have a standard template for the agreement for all countries. So when we look at the template, definitely we said it will definitely have a real impact to the country. So we said, okay, we will negotiate and try as best as we can to water down the language in the agreement. These are the outcome of a good team effort by MITI and all other relevant ministries and agencies, plus Attorney General Chambers to get the best outcome of the negotiations with the US. If, let's say, these MNCs are unable to export their products to US and close down the factory, not only the employee of the MNC will be affected, but also those small, medium companies that relying on these MNCs will also be affected.
The Malaysia-US trade deal was meant to ensure mutually fair and balanced trade between both nations, but it sparked heated debate. Behind the headlines and behind closed doors, negotiators put emotions aside to focus on what truly benefits the nation. Negotiation is a language that is not easy for everyone to get through and understand. Now, also, from your experience, Dato', what were the priorities for this negotiation, as you can share?
As I mentioned just now, the impositions of reciprocal tariff actually will have impact to our industry. Because if you look at the figures, about more than 60% of our export to US for E&E products. And out of this, almost half of it are in the semiconductor industry. So when you look at the semiconductor industry, it's actually part of supply chain. So when you look at the supply chains, the activity that being undertaken in Malaysia, people will say that those main exporters to the US are actually American companies. they are producing something because they want to get low cost of production here in Malaysia and re-export to US. So why are we helping these companies? But we have to understand, in order for them to produce those finished product, they need inputs, parts and components, which in the whole environment, we have actually nurture SMEs, local companies, local SMEs, they are supplying those parts and components to these MNCs. If, let's say, these MNCs are unable to export their products to US and close down the factory, not only the employee of the MNC will be affected, but also those small, medium companies, local, domestic industries that relying on these MNCs will also be affected. And it is not only limited to those supplying parts and components. What about those supporting industry, for example, logistics, F&B, real estate? Because sometimes in a small township, because you have these big companies, you can actually have housing development areas, and people can own the house and rent it to the workers of the companies, so that they can get income from those activities. So these are the people that will be affected if our access to US market closed down. So this is the actual driving force for the government to engage the US, to make sure that especially our own people will not lose their job. It's not about the price of goods will go up. It's about they will lose their job, they don't have money, and for their own survival. So that is why we have to engage US to make sure that at least our market to US will retain as it is, so that whatever industry activity in the Malaysia will continue as it is. And at the same time, we also have potential investor into the country with the intentions of opening the facility to also export to the US. So because of the announcement, some of them put on hold of their plan to expand or to make new investment to the country. So it's a loss to the country, because we need to continue generating economic activity in order to make sure that our growth will continue. So by engaging US, negotiate and ultimately come up with an agreement, at least it's provided some certainty to our businesses. After the negotiations, we managed to reduce the duty from 25% to 19%. So at least they know when they go to US market, they will be subjected to 19%. If we do not have this agreement, we are not sure, because either President Trump will go back to the 24% or maybe more. Just like what he did to India. Suddenly increased to 50%, just because India decided to purchase petroleum from Russia. So this is an unpredictable person that we need to have something at least for us to provide certainty to our industry and businesses.
As chief negotiator, you've been there with the art of the deal tackling this. Do tell us from your point of view, why does US impose these tariffs?
The reciprocal tariff is not only to certain countries. It actually was imposed to all US trading partners with the intention in their mind to remedy the lack of reciprocity. In their view, the current way of trading, their products are being blocked by certain countries, because not only with tariff measures, but also other measures which they call as non-tariff measures. So in order for them to remedy these situations, so they have do some calculations. That is why different trading partners having different rate of reciprocal tariff. And one of the elements that they incorporated in that formula is the amount of trade deficit that they experience with that particular country. Okay. So for Malaysia, based on 2024 statistic, our trade surplus with the US amounted around USD 25 billion. So with that taken into considerations, they have imposed us with 24% reciprocal tariff. So the higher trade surplus that you experience with US, the higher reciprocal tariff that will be imposed on you. We are trying our best to create new market to be a member of BRICS. We also have new market like South Africa and Brazil to enter into Latin Americas and also African market.
Trade isn't just numbers. It's people, strategy, and knowing the world. The government's trade negotiators read global politics, spot opportunities, and build relationships to open markets and smooth the path for Malaysian businesses and exporters.
Dato', just now earlier we were touching on the impact of the tariffs from a national point of view. Now, how about the exporters, particularly SME exporters? How are they being affected from this?
Actually, when we look at the SMEs, there will be two angles. One is the one that I mentioned just now, supplying their items to the MNC that ultimately will export to US. The other one is direct exporter to the US market. For the one that actually supplying the products to the MNCs, now they must absorb the 90% cost in order to, because it's a value chain, so some way or another, it will raise their landed costs. However, with the agreement, we have provided certainty. Usually, businesses will do the necessary adjustment. It is better than suddenly they be imposed with a higher or overnight increase on tariff. So that is for those that supplying to the MNCs. The direct SMEs that actually export their product to America, this is actually a bonus to Malaysia. When we signed the agreement, US unilaterally has identified 1,711 tariff lines of Malaysia products that will be exempted from the reciprocal tariff. So these products actually covers palm oil, cocoa, some aircraft parts and some pharmaceutical ingredients. And we know that mostly those are products produced by SMEs. But again, art or agreement on reciprocal trade is not the only measures that government is taking to help the SMEs. We have also looked into two other areas. One is how to diversify the market, to create or to find new market for our SMEs. Art is necessary for a short-term solution, but for a longer solution, we feel that our SMEs should reduce their reliance on US market. For MITI, we will continue to enter into new free trade agreement. We have just signed with UAE, United Arab Emirates, FTA with UAE, and we have also signed FTA with EFTA countries, that is Norway, Switzerland, Liechtenstein and Norway. We will launch our negotiations with GCC countries, Middle East countries, and currently we are also negotiating with EU for an FTA. So we are trying our best to create new market. And if you read from the newspaper since last year, we have shown our interest in BRICS to be a member of BRICS, because we know BRICS with their populations, that is, a good market for our product, especially for the SMEs. Because although we have India and China there as our traditional market, we also have new market like South Africa and Brazil, which can be our door to enter into Latin Americas and also African market. And thirdly, definitely government has take into consideration, especially when formulating budget for 2026, with this development on the reciprocal tariff, provided specific grants and incentive to help SMEs to adapt, for example, digitalizations, technology, for them to increase their efficiency, to increase their productivity, so that they can cushion the impact of any uncertainty created in the global market.
From all these, what alternative export markets would you say and prioritize for a Malaysian exporter or manufacturer?
The Prime Minister went to Ethiopia, South Africa and Kenya. People are questioning why Ethiopia? But if you look at the statistic last year, we have several countries in Africa, including Ethiopia. If you look at our export growth with those countries, it's very significant. Some of them even above 50% growth. So these are new market that we need to penetrate. Because people always think that only developed countries have the purchasing power.
Correct. I think that's most of the mindset or perspective for most people.
But we have to also look at the population. The price that they are able to purchase may be lower, slightly lower, but in terms of volume, it will be actually more than what being demanded by developed countries. So we have to take into consideration, but at the same time, our industry have to understand and make adjustment to suit the demand in those particular countries, and this will take times. MATRI is one of the agency under MITI that promote export. They will identify potential exporter and provide capacity building for those companies. First, understand which country actually demand their product. Number two, what are the specifications that required in that particular country. So with that understanding, with the proper training, our SMEs will be able to actually produce a product not only for a single country, but for multiple countries, and diversify their sales and also hopefully their profit and the development of the business.
So how about diversifying to new regions in ASEAN?
As the lead for the economic pillar, one of our priority for this year is to enhance intra-ASEAN trade and investment, because we look at ASEAN as an opportunity for ASEAN actually, because we always thought ASEAN as a manufacturing hub. We never think ASEAN as a consumer-based region. But if you look at the current populations, almost 680 million, and they are young populations, middle income populations, actually the demand in ASEAN is a huge opportunity that ASEAN countries should utilize and should not depend on markets outside of the region. When we look at the moment, the intra-trade for ASEAN is only around 21 to 22% of the total ASEAN trade. So it is very low. We should make effort to increase more intra-trade among ASEAN, and that is what we have done this year. We have signed ASEAN Trade in Goods Upgraded Agreement, which contain more market liberalizations, and also to make sure that the agreement also consists of the recent development in the trade environment, such as e-commerce activity, digital trade, and so on. So we hope with that upgraded agreement, the intra-trade and investment among ASEAN will grow further.
For trade negotiators, the world is the stage. Even with free trade agreements, countries often protect their own industries, making global trade a complex game for negotiators. It's about turning challenges into growth, helping Malaysia thrive globally. Get more insights like this only on Decimal Point.